we go. The man, the myth, the legend, Manuel. How you doing, Manuel?
Oh, that's pretty cool. I'm seeing the logo there. That's pretty nice. I'm doing good. How you doing, Ace?
I'm doing well, man. I'm very excited for today. We got a couple nice things today.
Yep. Now hold back tears. That's what we're getting into today. Hold back tears.
Yep, that's definitely right. And let me make sure that I have the proper thing here for Luis. Luis, the guys with the hottest takes on gaming is gonna be Luis with us today. Hold up again with this. Okay, this is being like problematic for whatever reason. There we go. What's going on, Luis? How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. I mean, wow, those JPEGs look nice.
The
They look
what?
nice. The JPEGs, they look nice, man.
Oh,
It's a proper way to introduce us. Yeah, I'm glad.
this
I'm
is
glad
a
I'm here
quick.
tonight with you guys. We have a lot going on, so yeah.
Yeah, it was something I threw in quick, just trying to change up the formula a little bit. And, for the second straight week with us and, in official capacity, the newest member of the No Name crew, Rubikat. What's going on?
Hello, everyone. I'm doing good. I'm in the middle of vacation, so I'm pretty happy, pretty excited to be here for a second week, and I'm excited to hear from everyone.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, of course. I think everybody had a good time last time. Chad was loving you. So, again, as I said, in an official capacity. And as you can see her dedication as she is on vacation, but still joining us today. So, definitely a great addition to the team. Uh, let's see here. With the first thing that I wanted to do before we did anything else was I wanted to address the fact that we got affiliate for Twitch, and of course I wanted to thank every single one of you out there that made this possible for us. I don't know if you guys want to say anything as well about that.
No, I mean
You're
just
the one
as
that's gonna carry us. That's it.
just yeah, like you said, thanks to everybody that's been watching. Big Ooze is always here, the first one here, usually the first one to write something in the chat, and that shows a lot about your fans, your audience, that they're really loyal and they've gotten you far really fast. So this is just the beginning, eh? So congratulations.
Absolutely, we're super happy about that. Um, with that, we're gonna move on to the first thing that we're gonna talk about. We got a few good things today, and before we get into any of the topics, uh, let's talk about what we've been playing, what we've been watching. Why don't we get started with Luis?
Okay. First of all, full disclosure. I have a toddler, so yeah, you might be hearing him. But we'll try to manage. Um, Playing, man. I've been doing a lot of that. I haven't been able to like um my toddler to record and stream much because we've had electricity problems here in the island, but I have been enjoying that downtime in the playing side. I finished Miles Morales Spider-Man, really short but great addition to the Insomniac mantle. I don't know if I could put it over Marvel Spider-Man. It might be a preference of Peter for me especially, but it is a great game. I finished off um Beast of Maravilla Island. Yeah, it's an indie game that I just bought. It was part of the whole swim direct, so it was really cool. I always try to um incorporate indie into my mix-up. Try to do that. And I got back to the medium yesterday. and yeah, that game it's phenomenal. Even better with 3D audio. So yeah.
All right. What about you, Manuel? What you been playing? What you been watching?
I did the platinum for Marvel Spider-Man. I can say definitively that Miles Morales is a better game. Definitely, I don't have ifs, ands, or buts about that. Very very fun. But it was the platinum for Marvel Spider-Man was very fun. I've noticed something about platinums, and that makes me rethink the way I play games. Platinums generally, I think it's happened like 2 or 3 times already. They make the faults of a game stand out more. So the first time I played Marvel Spider-Man, I had a blast. I had a bunch of fun. But being forced to do certain things just for trophies makes you realize, man, I wish the controls were tighter. Man, I wish this didn't happen with the camera. Man, I wish, so it makes you feel the flaws of the game in a way that you wouldn't notice if you didn't have to do the trophy. So I'm not sure. I gotta think before I do another platinum of a game that I love because it's gonna make me question how good it actually is, and I don't want that. It happened with Returnal as well. I like the experience, and now every time I think of Returnal, I say, that game's the worst, just because I can't do the platinum. So I don't know. Anyway, I've been playing Marvel Spider-Man and the DLC as well that came with it because Sony forced me to buy it 3 times, so I might as well play the DLC while I'm at it. And I started Ratchet and Clank as well, and I've been playing that. Watching, I don't think I'm watching anything aside from Superman and Lois. That's pretty much what I'm watching, which is awesome. You should be watching it if you're not.
The Rubikat, what about you?
So this week, I played the Game Builder Garage demo. That was something that stood out for me from Nintendo, and I wanted to test the demo, kind of like get a glimpse of like the capabilities of the game, like how much you can build. I mean, they do a pretty good tutorial about explaining everything as simple as possible, but I'm gonna try to be as impartial as possible, but that's a little hard because in real life I'm an actual programmer. I think that the demo, or at least the game, is good for like building like a prototype game, but not much more than that. And I think I had high expectations in terms of like wanting to build like my own RPG game on it, even if it was something small. And I don't think it can get that far. So I was a little sad, but I hope that somehow Nintendo improves it and makes another game and keeps building up on it, because it is still a good idea for kids, for anybody that wants to learn to kind of like use their imagination and build something out of it. That's a pretty cool concept, nonetheless.
So I want to ask Rubikat, have you gotten into Dreams ever? You ever tried it out at least?
I haven't tried it out yet.
Okay, so see, because I didn't know that you were a programmer. I know you said it on the on the show before, but I must have forgot. So I think Dreams is for you then. If that's what you want, if you want to really get into it and really create stuff a little more complex than what Nintendo offers, Dreams is it. Dreams, because that's the problem with me. I think that Dreams is incredible, but for somebody like me that doesn't know anything about programming, it was a little too difficult for me to get into. I could never create my own thing. But if that's what you're looking for, I think Dreams has all of the tools that you want to be able to, and especially like what I loved about Dreams was playing other people's creations. And I was blown away by what people did, and they've taken it to another level since then. Now you can create dreams in VR as well. You can create stories. You can create like so much stuff. So I would highly recommend Dreams to you.
All right, I'm gonna have to look for it and start playing. That's cool.
For me, I have literally watched nothing but the first episode of Loki. I've been really busy this week, but I really, really enjoyed that. I don't know if anyone out there in the chat is a Marvel fan, but if you are, this is definitely something to watch. I think the guys agree with me there. I've been playing Miles. I have to get through it. As much as little as I've played, uh, through it, I would have to agree with Manuel. I think maybe like Luis said, he may have a bias for Peter. I think this is I think this one improved a lot on what the other one, the first one, did. But they're both great games. I can't say anything really bad about any of them. Uh, but I think Miles, for me personally, is the better game. I played a little bit. Well, I didn't play a little bit. I forced myself to get through intermission because I paid for it. Might as well. Y'all were there in the stream. I feel like you hated this as much as I did, so we don't really have to get into it a whole lot. Um, I played a
But
little bit of.
apparently we're in a minority
Oh
because
yeah,
everybody's saying is good,
worth
good to
mentioning.
great.
Yeah, it is definitely worth mentioning. Good that you brought it up, Manuel. Yeah, apparently we are in the minority. We don't know what we're talking about. The game is great for everybody else. So you know, $20 for just the walking around and finding mindless fodder. Pretty much, it's what's up because it's Final Fantasy. So yeah, let's keep throwing money at them. I can't hear you, Manuel, right now.
Sorry, I put the mute outside. So
Yeah.
what I find interesting is that because usually I'm like you who looks at reviews just to see like main through lines or what everybody's saying. And the one thing that every review is saying is that the game makes you care for Yuffie in a way that the original didn't make you care. So that's what I find interesting. Apparently, it's a consensus that the game actually like that was the point of the game, and they did it.
I feel like I personally don't care much for her either way, honestly. But I mean, it ties up the fact that she was there uh, through some things that okay, so it makes sense that she has her issues with Shinra and whatever. But other than that, I mean, it was too long for what it was. Like it could have even been a cutscene, and I would have been good with it, and not pay $20 for what it basically amounted to that. All right, but so yeah, I played that Ratchet and Clank. I played a little bit, not as much as you guys did. If you guys want to give us some quick thoughts on that, I thought it was great, but I'll let you guys do it because you guys played a little bit more than I did.
I'm curious to know how much Luis, how much have you played?
I think I've played after the intro and scroll the credits. Um, I think maybe like 3 hours after that. Not much because I've been dabbling into some other stuff. But yeah, for me, it's like the proper way that I could describe this game is like if you could like play a Pixar movie, like every aspect of a Pixar movie, that will be it. This game is beautiful. From the games that I've played till now, which there are not many. I played Returnal, Astro's Playroom, um, Miles Morales, and now Ratchet and Clank. I would say this is the prettiest game on the PS5 right now. The better running also. I did find a stutter in Miles, at least on 2 occasions. It's rare because I saw that I was in the minority there, but there has not been a hitch or a glitch or any bug in my runs, or at least in the short amount of time that I played Ratchet. So it's a great testament to Insomniac on that and that front. The combat is fluid, the platforming is fun. It seems that it gets to open up, as the game progresses. So that's cool. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, I have mixed feelings about it. I think that as a first party title, obviously it's a showcase, so it's incredible in that sense visually, and how it uses the controller to an extent. The 3D auto, I'm convinced that 3D auto isn't just it's a gimmick. It's not the real thing. I thought it was I was gonna be blown away by 3D auto. So far, I'm not thrown blown away. Maybe one day when I go to Luis's house and try his headphones, see if that makes a difference. But the ones that I have, not impressed. Not in Returnal or in Ratchet. The one thing, my frustration with Ratchet and Clank is the following. It's my same frustration with Sonic games. Sonic is about speed, and you cannot play the classic Sonic games just running through the level. You can't do that. The game wants you to like. It seems like you want to go fast, but you can't go fast in the classic Sonic games because you just can't. You're gonna die. You're gonna get hit. It's just not designed that way. And Ratchet has a similar problem. It feels like a game that you just want to go out there and just have fun, just jump around and shoot and use all this stuff, and it's so awesome. But you have to slow down because if you don't, you're not gonna get enough items. You're not gonna be able to level up. You're not gonna be able to. You have to take your time with each level. So it feels at odds with itself. Like I want to just run right through the levels and just have fun, but you're forced to slow down and explore every creek and corner and talk to people. And it's like I wish it was one or the other. And that's the one thing that's kind of frustrating me with the game. I want to just have fun, and I can't. I have to slow down and do everything. And the other thing is, how annoying is it when games are clearly designed to be explored, but when you go exploring, the game constantly tells you like every 10 seconds, hey, remember we got to go over there. Oh, hey, how about we go over there? Hey, let's go over there. Like I know I have to go over there, but it's an open world. So how are you gonna tell me every 10 seconds to go over there when the game's designed to explore? So the game seems to be at odds with itself, and that kind of frustrates me. I don't like I don't know. I want to finish it because it's short and it's not too long, and obviously it costs $70. So I'm going to finish the game, but I don't see how people can say that this is the best Insomnia game. Like I still have Spider-Man or Miles Morales at number one. In general, though, it is a good and it is a fun game.
Now that you mentioned that topic about the main character addressing where he needs to go, I found that Miles does that way too much. That was one of my concerns. Because there were parts, not all of them, but there were like key parts where the story is on the climax, and he's like, oh my god, I need to do this. Oh my god, I need to do this. But the game is designed in a way that you can freely explore, right? So let's say right before the train and all that. Yeah, I won't delve into spoilers because Ace hasn't played it, but way before that, the game, it had like a waypoint, but it didn't like, it wasn't too hard on it. But after that, I found Miles to be like, I don't know, uh, like battling himself. I want to free roam, but I want to do this too, and I found that unappealing on a way. I do get what you mean, because that often happens. Not on the Insomniac side only. On open worlds as a genre. So yeah, it makes zero sense.
Manuel, other than talking about what you've been playing, I know you have some news for us. I'm
Oh,
gonna put it
I
up.
forgot
Yep,
about that.
and
Thanks,
when you
thanks,
can
Mr.
tell us
Antonio.
about that, go ahead, man.
So yeah, just briefly, in case you guys want, everybody that's watching, you want to know a little bit more about Ratchet and Clank. I did my first impressions, but I have a new channel. I usually have, Nerd Como Tu is in Spanish and whatnot, and I've always felt kind of like forced in that channel. I don't know. I've always felt like I can't really be myself and talk about everything that I want to talk about, because Spanish is not the. I mean, technically it is my first language, but it's not the language I grew up with. I feel more comfortable speaking in English. So I decided to create another outlet for me to be able to speak in English. I'm doing both things, but right now I'm really excited about my other channel, which is called Nerd Plays, which you guys can see right here. I appreciate that, Ace. So you go to YouTube, you can look me up at Nerd Plays, and I'm right now I'm focusing on Let's Plays. That's what I'm doing. But since it's more me, so you're gonna get right now. I'm still struggling with how to do it, but it's more me. It's more of how I am as a person, more as opposed to when I speak in Spanish. I'm usually kind of limited, because I don't know if you guys know this, but I think in English and I speak in Spanish. So sometimes it's that struggle. You can tell. And so anyway, that's what I'm doing. And right now, the most recent video that I have up is my first impressions of Ratchet and Clank. The first 40 minutes of the game, I play it and yeah, just get over there and subscribe.
All right, so make sure you go ahead and do that and support Manuel. He's doing great stuff. You see him here, you enjoy what he brings to the table. Make sure you head over to YouTube and check him out. He's got good stuff over there. Uh, Moving on from that, we're gonna go ahead and start with the news that we've seen this week. And this one I saw like shortly before we got started, and I wanted to bring it up real quick. Cyberpunk coming back to the PS Store. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, okay, it makes me think a lot of. Well, I'm speaking too much. Let somebody else speak first.
Luis, what do you think?
It's interesting because we we delved deeply into what why we think that CD Projekt Red wants to fix this game. There's too much attached. Marketing, there's a Netflix series, there's all that. It's weird for the game to be listed on the wish list and to have a proper date. I think is the June 21st, right? Um, the game that you're gonna play, it might have patches and all that, but it's not the PS5 version. So it's weird that right now we have that. be marketed at some point in the PS Store, because we don't have the next gen version. Either we don't have the Series X version. So we still have the base game. What you're getting is the same base game that people complained about, and Sony ended up taking it from the store. So that itself is really interesting. I don't know if, and this is me just speculating, because I don't know about this, but I do think that there might be an issue regarding CD Projekt Red retaliation over Sony, because I've read somewhere, and I wanted to point you guys the argument, because I've never, like, it's never been addressed before. You know that Sony took it out because people were arguing with Sony because the game was broken for the PS4, right? Not essentially on the PS5, because PS5 owners did enjoy it at an extent, because it did have bugs and all that, but it was working, right, for the most part. So when they took it out and people were complaining about refunds and all that, people thought that Sony was doing like a way of protecting customers. I don't buy that, but you can see that. And Sony did the right thing by removing it. Regardless of the reason, they did the right thing. Um, I did not hear before that Sony might be in an issue, in a legal battle, because of doing so. Because it seems that since the game was working on PS5, and you essentially have one store that serves two console generations, by removing that, they they uh, I mean, in a way, affected the game. For the people that wanted to buy it on the PS5, and I never thought about that. And it seems that Sony might be in a trouble. That's why they're trying to push the marketing side, because Sony doesn't do marketing for any game whatsoever. When you put your game, let's say if the four of us make a game, we have to buy the patent, and we have to get someone to do the marketing and all that. Sony would not give that to us, but it is giving them the credit for it. So I wanted to pose the argument, because I don't know if you've read about this, but Sony might be in an issue because they did something that might be considered good, but they did it in a irrational way, in a precarious way. I don't know. It's weird.
I just have two things about this situation. Number one, I think that the game. I think the thing about it coming back is that Sony put it is gonna put it back. They already have like a warning label pretty much for it. Hey, this is you should play this on the PS5 or on the at the very least on the Pro. So it's kind of like, okay, so here's the game. It's probably not gonna work for you, but here you go. And another thing with Cyberpunk that I have the most concern with is that it's gonna get abandoned. Like what's the other game, the
Anthem.
Anthem. I think that they're probably they're forced to fix about as much of it as it will legally require them to do, and then they're just gonna be like, okay, there you go, we're done with this and move on to something else. They don't have, I don't think, any other pressing projects like that, which gives them the leeway to work on it. But at the same time, it's a lot of different things, like Manuel mentioned on a previous podcast, and not just them. The developers maybe want to get it done. You got the higher ups that just want to either move on. They're trying to make up the money in some way. Cyberpunk, with it stayed on the Xbox and other things, and on the stores, and it's continued to not sell, which is something that they might look at and be like, okay, we're done with this. So I think those are the two key takeaways for me personally. What do you think, Manuel?
I mean, I don't have a lot more to say than what we've spoken before and what you guys have already said. I don't think it's gonna take the Anthem route. I don't think it's gonna go like they're just gonna abandon it. I think they are gonna make the eventually the PS5 version, the next gen version, and then they'll leave it at that. I doubt they'll continue with DLC. We never know. But I think that the only way this game can be successful, I don't think this is the way. Like right now, if it goes back on the store, nobody's gonna buy it. I think the only way this can be successful is if at some point they get together a marketing team and say, "Hey, this happened at launch. All of this stuff happened. We finally fixed the game. The game works. This is the next gen version. This is the definitive version to buy. Now get into it. And I think that's the only way they can actually push it and make some money off of it. If they just release it and it works, people already have the perception that it doesn't work, so they're just not gonna buy it. So that's pretty much. I don't think it's gonna be abandoned like Anthem was. I think they're gonna finish the next gen version.
Yeah, that does make sense. Rubikat, you got an opinion on Cyberpunk 2077?
Cash is king, like they say in Formula One. That's everything that's happening there. I mean, I don't have any additional inputs other than, I mean, their reputation is pretty much ruined, and I'm not shocked that it's not selling, even if it's in the Xbox store. And like Manuel says, like it could have sold out if they would have focused on the next generation where it should be running and not on the older versions. If they're trying to fix everything, it's because they want to make as much money as possible. But I'm not sure that it's gonna get killed, but I don't think it's gonna keep being worked on once they finally release a workable, legal final product out there. I think that they need to kill it and move on. And it's a learning lesson for everybody in the industry, right? Like you have to start with the right food, and if not, like there's gonna be some consequences, which could be good for the future for other companies to learn, and for us as customers to react when things are not working or things are not good. So
It is absolutely a cautionary tale for both, like you said, for the industry as well as us as consumers. It's like Manuel says, and I'm starting to lean more and more into that. It's the pre-ordering and stuff like that, getting overhyped for games, especially when we just talked about the state that games continue to come out in lately and how it's been accepted. I think that's a practice that needs to die. Maybe that will tell the companies something, that maybe hey, get your games ready, or you're just not gonna get handed money like that, because we're gonna start not trusting what publications tells us when you give them a 9 about a game that doesn't work, and we're not gonna pre-order, and we're not gonna do this. Okay, so get it ready, or we're just not gonna buy it, and then you don't get your money. Because I feel like the thing about them is like, okay, well, we got our money, so we're good. So hopefully we can move in the right direction with that, letting them know this is not okay. We'll see.
Yeah, and I just want to say real quick too, like this is very complicated, but you can't. I don't. Another reason why I don't think they're just gonna abandon it. First of all, you have to think these games are usually made with DLC in mind, so they have to have something already in the works in terms of that they've had to delay because of all of this stuff that's happened. But beyond that, if they say, you know what, they just cut our losses and move on to whatever's next, the problem with that is you never won your fan base back. So whatever you do next, people aren't going to trust you. And the second problem with that is that how long is it going to take you to make your next big game? At least 4 or 5 years. So we have to take 4 or 5 years plus the year and a half or 2 years that was lost with Cyberpunk. And on top of that, there's no guarantee that your next game is going to sell because people already lost respect. That's why I don't think they can just cut their losses and move on. I think they have to fix this before moving on to the next one. They have to say, okay, now it's fixed, and that way people can kind of believe in them next time. And part of the marketing next time is going to be, hey, we know what we did with the last game. This is not it. We're ready. And that's going to be interesting. I don't think there's ever been a marketing in a game that includes trust us. And I think the CD Projekt Red is going to be the first one that they're going to have to in the next game. Part of the marketing is going to have to be, trust us. We're doing it right this time.
I agree. That's definitely a good take. With that, talking about the marketing, I'm gonna bring up our next topic of news for the day. We're going to be talking about E3, stuff that we take with us from it. We're not going to talk about every single thing. But you were talking about the marketing, so I immediately wanted to go with this one, The Outer Worlds 2. The the trailer that they had, which was kind of like just poking fun at everything on the industry, man. I think that was genius. That's definitely the kind of humor that series is the first game was known for, and hopefully there's more of that in the next one. I am personally looking forward to that one, and the other one that I'm looking forward to the most is going to be the 12 minutes game. I think I think I'm looking for a different experience. I was telling you guys in gaming, and I think this might be it. But what are you guys? What are your takeaways from E3? What do you stick with the most?
You're gonna have to call on us like we're in school.
You know, Luis wants to go. Go, Luis. You could go. He was jumping at the mic. You know it.
I mean, there this history has been so interesting, because for the most part, I do get why people complain because we're in a weird spot right now. We've had delays. We still have a lot to catch up on the development side. COVID did affect the industry. Rubikat is a testament to that. She can talk to us about how many times she had to reschedule her projects, due to COVID and all that. So, there has been a lot of problems on the tech side and on the development side, but this E3, um, at least on my part, it seemed like the full experience. I did enjoy every conference. There are high notes and really low ones. Like the COF studio presentation that was bad. Something that people will have to understand, Square needs to understand this too, is that if you don't have nothing to show, please don't. You have good games coming up on multiple platforms. The Guardians of the Galaxy game look good. Not as great, but good. That could have been part of the Microsoft showcase. It was on Nintendo side because that game will run on the cloud version, which is weird. We can touch on that later. But this is three for the most part. It felt like the full experience, and I do want to start off with that because us gamers, we've been like wanting. We've been delving all this. We wanted games, we wanted announcement, and we got them. 12 minutes, yeah, it's a highlight. I want to play that. Outer Worlds 2 also on my list. Redfall looks really interesting. Also Back for Blood on the multiplayer side. I will want to play that with you guys if you ever catch an Xbox, because it's gonna be on Game Pass. That's the great thing. 27 of those 30 titles will be on Game Pass, so that's huge itself. The new Metroid game, I want to play that. It looks really interesting. I saw some of the Treehouse thing they presented, and it seems that this game, if it has been in development for 16 years. So this game started off as a GBA game, a Game Boy Advance game. Then it was for the DS. Then it went off to be a Wii title. And the last time they addressed it, it seemed like it was coming for Wii U, and it never came. So this it's weird, but it looks so good. It's like stealthy in a way. So it's really promising. The robot that came out, he'll always be searching for you. So that's cool. How to address gameplay in that scenario. Breath of the Wild 2 looks promising. Like it runs well, at least from tech side. What else? Advance Wars looks cool. Not my cup of tea, but look cool. Ubisoft did great on their end. I'm very fond of them having a pause with the Assassin's Creed games. That's great. AVR, the protagonist of Valhalla, deserves another chance to maybe DLC or spin-off of all that. Aside from Ezio, I think that he might be the best protagonist that we've gotten till now. So yeah, that's cool. And they pausing, the Assassin's Creed for a while. That's cool too. Let me see what else. Square did nothing for me aside from Guardians. The new game. It has the worst title in any game possible, like Final Fantasy something State of something Origins. I don't know. I can't recall. It's so bad. And the demo, you can't even download that. So worst part of their presentation, not delivering on that. And to wrap it up, I do think that the best conference with the best pacing was the Wholesome Direct, which is weird because it's an indie direct, but the pacing was phenomenal and the games They were really good. I ended up buying Beast of Marijal Island, and I also want to try out the water thing, the water spraying thing. I can't recall the game, but it was cool. Like the water pressing game, that you have to clean all that the filth. Yeah, it looks like a chill game. So yeah, more of a that type of game. So yeah, so that's my take. Up top.
Rubikat, what about you? What did you see that stood out for you?
So, one thing that I noticed, and this is gonna go back to one of our previous topics, is Far Cry 6, right? Far Cry, if you love the series, they have a very specific formula. It seems like they added like new gameplay, new items, new things to do, so that's fine. But then I saw a celebrity again, like Giancarlo Esposito, and it made me think like, wait, Kojima started that trend, if I'm not mistaken, with like Keith Sutherland. And then you go back to Cyberpunk, and my belief is that what sold Cyberpunk was Keanu Reeves on stage saying, you're beautiful, everyone." That was like their biggest marketing campaign. And I'm just wondering if this is gonna be a thing to sell games. I just put a celebrity in there, and then everybody loses their mind and just buy the game. So that was one thing that just made me think about. Um, I have to disagree with Luis in Guardians of the Galaxy. I was intrigued because I'm a Marvel fan, but when the trailer came out, I was like, "Oh, nice." But when they start showing the gameplay, like it really bothered me that all the characters were talking at the same time or battling. And I know they're just supposed to have like a banter back and forth, but it became annoying. I felt like it didn't have like substance. And then again, if you're a Marvel fan from the movies, you're gonna start comparing it. So it's difficult. And if you know the Marvel movies and the comics are a little different, so that there you go. It's a really hard game to get into, and I thought like I don't know, like the formula was like overly done for me. But that's just my taste in things. Surprisingly, think I was more into the Nintendo one with like Breath of the Wild, like Metroid had like a pretty dark, seemed like it was gonna be kind of horror type of game. So I was like, that's pretty cool. If Nintendo knows what they're doing, they can revive the series. It can be their, I don't know, horror Halo game or whatever. So that was good. I have to agree with Luis. The indie games were pretty good, pretty creative. If you're into that sort of world, I do like the indie games. I thought they beat Square Enix by a lot. Nothing that Square Enix show caught my attention. I was very disappointed. I can't even recall the name. Something about paradise and chaos, chaos, chaos. That was all the trailer. The character design for me didn't stood out either. I don't know what's going on there, but I wasn't excited. Maybe the best thing was like we're just gonna remaster all the Pixel 1 through 6 or whatever Final Fantasy games, and that was pretty much it. One thing and that I did mention to the guys offline was Rocksmith. They gave updates. They were talking about it. Um, I thought it was a brilliant idea, and hopefully they're gonna make a lot of money out of it because you actually have a real guitar and you're just gonna plug it in and play your favorite music, and you're actually gonna learn guitar in a fun way. So I'm expecting that to be great. I hope so. I have a guitar, I can't plug it in, but if the game is good, I'll buy one and surely play. So
I want to piggyback before we get to Manuel. I'm sorry, Manuel. Before we get to you, I want to piggyback off what you said about the Guardians game because I mean, for me personally, not that not that I want to pile it on Square, but I don't have a lot of trust in this Guardians game after what's been the Marvel's Avengers games from them. It may look good right now, and even then, you guys didn't enjoy it as much, maybe. But it may look good for the masses right now, and then we might have some nonsense like we did with that one. So I don't know. I don't know. They're not doing even well with their own properties sometimes. So taking a different property from someone else, I don't know that I trust them, especially with what happened with One So We Love It. That there were so many ways that you could have gone with it and gone right with it, and it was disappointing to many. So I don't know that I trust them with that. Go ahead, Manuel. What you got, man?
Go ahead, Luis. Go ahead.
Oh,
Um,
good.
sorry. No, to piggyback on the Guardians thing, just quick. Um, I did think that it was the best thing that Square showed, but to that extent, I am in full agreement with you guys. It didn't look good, and the thing is that I I talked with you guys on our chat. We were delving. How can you tackle a Marvel property that has such a beloved cast? That's already established. In my mind, I could only see them being as good as the original cast in the MCU or being way different. And this is trying to be close to the MCU, but it's not good. So it might end up like the Avengers ones, because that's the main thing that kept me from playing Marvel's Avengers. When I saw that, I was like, man, Cap and Iron Man are not looking good. The voice acting's not there, and it's weird because they're really good voice actors. It's just that they made them be the MCU, and I think that if you want to tackle a well-established IP, you have to you have to be so far apart that people see that distance and they go like, man, this is familiar but different at the same time. I do enjoy this, but the way that Square is tackling this type of IPs, I don't trust them at all. So it's a shame because it's on the low point of the Guardians story
Popularity.
or whatever popularity. So I don't know what this game will do for fans, because there's not even a good run of comics right now happening with them. So it's weird. It's a weird way to
I'm gonna
establish
have
right
to,
now this
yeah, I'm gonna
franchise.
have to agree with you there because it's either you want to be the movies, in which case use these actors or whatever and make it like those stories or derive from it, or just be completely something else. This in between is what's not working for me. And I think that's what you're trying to say is that you're in between. They kind of look like them, but they're not them, and it's just odd and an odd choice for me. What do you think, Manuel?
I don't know, but I'm in disagreement a little bit with all of you because I think that the what you guys are describing as a problem with trying to be like the MCU, but it's not exactly the MCU, so people don't be like that. That's what Marvel's Avengers was. Guardians of the Galaxy is not that. It is different. They are completely different. Like none of the characters looked like the characters from the movie. They didn't talk like the characters from the movie. And I think that once you get used to them, you're gonna enjoy them. Like for me, what's his name? Drax is the only character that, as I was watching the gameplay trailer, I was like, I can't get into him because I like so much the character from the movie, so I really couldn't get into him. But eventually, he kind of grew on me. I think that this game is gonna be somewhere in between. We have Marvel Spider-Man, which is excellent. We're talking about a 9 or 10 game, and then we have Avengers, which is like a 5 or 6 game. I think this game is going to be like a 7 or 8. I think it's going to be a good game. I think as long as you give me a good story, I'm going to have fun. I do agree with Rubikat, and I hate that in video games when the characters talk too much, and that might be a turn off for me. If they're constantly talking, that might be what makes me not want to play. But I think as long as you give me a good story and it's centered on what's his name, the main character,
Star Lord.
Star Lord. It's centered on Star Lord. I think I'm gonna have a good time. I think it's gonna be fine. I'm not gonna buy it day one. I'm gonna wait to see what everybody thinks, but we'll see. In terms of, oh, you're gonna say something?
No, just
No, I was
yeah,
gonna
three. Oh, sorry.
no worries. So I was gonna say that the whole Guardians of the Galaxy gives me a DMC vibe. When you were a Devil May Cry fan and they rebooted and this was DMC, and then you were an older fan and you could just not play the DMC, but then new flesh came, new blood came, play the DMC game, and they actually liked it. So it might be, to Manuel's point, it might be a good game, but we might have that bias or that problem kind of like unifying both of our visions, for what Guardians of the Galaxy game should look like and feel like.
Yeah, I think that's the point, and I think that's going to be the struggle with this game. Who is it designed for? Because it seems like it's designed for people who don't have an affinity for the MCU, but most people already have an affinity for the MCU, so it's going to be difficult to break that across. So I agree with you. I think this game is mostly designed for people, for like newcomers, and this is going to be their Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not going to be the MCU. But anyway, and going to the Square game, man, like it clear it's there's not a lot to say about this, but my main criticism of that trailer was, aside from it doesn't look pretty, it doesn't look good, and the demo did not work, but they sold it as a meets Final Fantasy game, and nothing about that trailer looked like a Souls game. Absolutely nothing. That looked more, talking about Devil May Cry, that looked more like a Devil May Cry game than anything else, which might be good for whoever loves that genre, but it's not what they're selling us. So I'm very, very unconvinced with that. This is actually a Souls meets Final Fantasy game. It looks more like a Final Fantasy game and more action based or whatever. In terms of E3 in general, I think that Microsoft won hands down. I do agree that the indies were the number ones. Like if anybody won, it was the indies, because the indies dominated the Summerfest. They dominated the wholesome what's it called, the wholesome thing, and even the main the Microsoft and Nintendo. They had a lot of indies in there. So the real winners are the indie developers, the indie games. But if I'm gonna pick like a specific conference, I pick Microsoft only because Microsoft showed what they had to show, which is that you have to get in our ecosystem, and they did that. They're like they told us through that conference an hour and a half, which never got boring. An hour and a half, it was just hit after hit after hit after hit. Very few talking. At the end, they did a little bit of deep dive in Forza Horizon, and then it was over. So the pacing was incredible, and they sold everybody, people like me at least, who weren't sold entirely on getting into that ecosystem. I came out of E3 saying I need an Xbox. Like I need to get into that ecosystem. That's the way to play these games. Like 27 games out of the 30 are Game Pass day one. Like that's incredible, And when it comes to Nintendo, my problem with Nintendo, it was a good presentation. It was good, but I think that we have Nintendo on a different standard, and that's why we think it was good. And when you sit down and analyze what they showed us, or at least me, let's speak for me, because for example, Metroid, which is their biggest reveal in that thing, that direct, I don't like Metroidvania games. Like I can't get into them. So for me, that didn't impress me. I was like, I'm happy for those who love it, but it's not for me. But when we sit down and think about it, Nintendo showed the 2 out of the first 3 games were games that had already been showed in other conferences. And then they moved on from there, and they gave us a bunch of ports and remasters from old games. And then they showed us Metroid. And then they showed us Breath of the Wild, and it was over. And Breath of the Wild, apparently, they're not even sure that game is going to come out next year. Because if you realize the language that they use, we're aiming for 2022. Like, Nintendo doesn't talk like that. Clearly, something is up with this game. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what is going on, but for some reason, this game is taking longer than they expected. This game was supposed to have already been out. And they're not even sure that it's going to make 2022. So Nintendo to me was a letdown because the games didn't speak to me, and it was mostly ports and remasters or games that we saw on other conferences. I think Microsoft did what they had to do, so I gave them the crown.
I'm gonna agree with that. Microsoft definitely did what they had to do. You get with the program kind of deal, like you mentioned. I mean, just on value alone, and we could do a whole subject about this, but on value alone, Game Pass is just miles ahead of everybody else. It
Yeah, I
just
mean, just
is
think about
all
it.
these new
What?
games.
Yeah, do you think that, okay, Microsoft, good console, you don't have games. What do? They show us 30 games that are coming out this year or next year. Game Pass, yeah, that's more to try small games or games that aren't that good. Okay, 27 of those games are day one on Game Pass. Like they did exactly what they had to do. The criticism that we always criticize Microsoft about, what did they do? They showed us that we're wrong, that they got this on lock, and they haven't even gotten into the future with their Bethesda and all these things that they're like. Clearly, if this is the next year and a half, just imagine the next 3 or 4 years. Microsoft clearly is preparing, a big slate of games to these next few years.
Yeah, we were talking about this in the chat, and I just thought, oh my, like, Rubikat did the math herself, and it just makes sense. Every new game, like you buy a new console, and then just how many games you're gonna get throughout the year or whatever, and then we got all of these games here for free, like right off the get go, where you can buy a PlayStation, you can get if you get the PS5, I guess you can get Astro, and you get whatever once came in the collection, but then. These are games, and this was an issue for me personally. Most of the games that I did want to play for the collection I already had. Like these games have been out. Now Xbox is here talking about, okay, well if you get with us, you're gonna get all these new games day one, and I'm like, okay, sold. That's not what we've been accustomed to. And I think hit after hit from Microsoft on that note. It's just I think Sony needs to respond to this soon, or and I was saying this: Sony has a very loyal fan base, which keeps them going. But at some point, we're gonna have to look at that value and be like, okay, I can just spend all of this money to get these games, or I can get all these games. And at this point, we usually talk about how Sony maybe has the better what's the word, their own games, like their own games are usually they're exclusives. Sorry, the exclusives of Sony are usually it's an agreement that they might be better for some. Some prefer Halo or whatever, but for the most part, that's an agreement. But yeah, you can have all of these exclusives again. Which, first of all, my first thought to this point, at 6 months after the consoles came out, is that they're still not worth it, is my and then this comes out and I'm like, okay, this may be a reason why to get an Xbox. Now I'm thinking, now why should people get a PlayStation? You know what I mean? It just made me think of that. I don't know how you guys feel about that one, but that's my take on it.
You, something that I do agree with Manuel. In a sense, I did enjoy um the Nintendo conference, the Nintendo Direct, even though I do think that Manuel has a really good point. Nintendo, what they did today was mostly show us old games with a new coat of paint, or franchises that we thought were forgotten, in the way of Dance Wars and Super Monkey Ball, and the Mario Party thing, that it's an old rematch of old Mario Party games. That is really weird. That game on itself is so weird because it's
But
not
it's
a
pretty
proper
awesome though
remaster.
too. It is kind
Yeah,
of
it
awesome.
is.
Like everybody
Yeah.
seems to be like on that. It's 100 games, and it's like
Hmm.
the Super Mario All Stars. It's kind of like that. So
Yeah.
that is pretty awesome. But I agree with you. It's kind of weird.
It's kind of weird because you usually go the route of, let's say, pick this game, remaster or remake it, but I think this is the first time that I've seen a company like address a new game made of parts of multiple old games. It's weird, but it's Nintendo, and this might pull off because Super Mario Party sold 9.8 million units and is the best selling Super Mario Party ever. So they have a market for that. And my wife Kathy, when she saw it, she was like, the highlights of the conference. I don't like Breath of the Wild because she doesn't play Zelda. I don't like all this. I want a Pokemon, but that's okay. She said to me, I want to play Super Monkey Ball. I want to play the new Mario Party thing, and even Metroid. She was interested in it. So yeah. What was I gonna say? Yeah, I got back to it. What I do enjoy about my dad mind wanders off sometimes. What I did enjoy about Nintendo, and Microsoft did this too, they needed to speak to two audiences at the same time, and I do think they did. Um, they needed to sell the Switch for people who were on hold because they don't know if the new Switch or the Super Switch or whatever will come out. So Nintendo went out and said, no, it's software only. If you want to buy the Switch now. We have games and we have a roadmap. There are games coming out in 2022. We have Splatoon 3. We have the new Pokemon game, and maybe we might have Zelda. It all depends, But we have a roadmap. So there's games right now, and there's games coming up. And Microsoft did the same thing. They did address the 2021. We have games coming up in June, July, August, October, December. They even showed Halo. They didn't need to because in a way I saw that all this big slate of games were the highlight of the conference. I think Halo. This might be the first conference that does this, but this might be the first conference that tells people, Halo is good for the console, but you can go to Microsoft to place everything. You don't need to think of the Halo console right now, and that's magic because usually Halo is the one that carries Microsoft around, and not the other way around. So this was really really well done on their end. So yeah, I gotta give them props because they showed good slate of games for 2021. There's a backlog for 2022, so there's hope and promise there, but there's also delivery, and they both did that. That's really good.
Did any of you guys see the trailer for? I lost it here. Trek to Yomi, I think is what it's called. Nobody, none of you guys heard of that one. I suggest that you guys look it up after we get out of here. Well, maybe it might be your games. Let me see. That's what it's called. Trek to Trek to Yomi. It's an indie game. It's like a black and white 2D side scrolling Ghost of Tsushima. So that
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I
it's,
remember that.
it looks so awesome. It looks so awesome. I can't wait for that game. Whenever that game comes out, I'm in day one. I just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, like an old Kurosawa film, black and white. Yeah, I remember that. That was part of the Wholesome Direct, right?
No,
I think they
I
ended.
saw it. No, that was. I mean, I don't know if they showed it in the Wholesome Direct, but I saw it in the Summerfest, one of the Summerfest ones. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, I think I saw it on the Wholesome Direct. I think they ended that with that game. Yeah, like an old Kurosawa film. Man, looked great.
I mean, that isn't exactly wholesome. I don't know why they would include it there, but because it was pretty violent. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
All right, so if you guys are ready, we're gonna move on to the main subject of the main topic of the night. This one was brought to us by Manuel, so I'm gonna go ahead and let him explain and go first.
All right, so let's get into it then. Basically, the topic is the question. I was thinking as you guys were talking in the chat. First, I think Red Dead came up, and I started thinking about how Red Dead made me feel at a particular moment in time, and that's when the topic came into my head. Like, man, what is a game that literally made you want to like be better or be a better person? And but then Francelli, or Rubikat, sorry, she mentioned the name. She mentioned, she was like, what about games that simply helped you throughout, in a difficult time in your life and whatnot? I was like, yes. When I was thinking through the topic, that's what I was thinking of. So mainly that's the topic, like a game that helped you get through a difficult time, or a game that made you want to be a better person. That's basically what the topic is. You guys said that you're gonna let me start. If you guys let me start, it's gonna be kind of long. But I mean, I don't know if I should start with like my main game, the one game that I really want to bring up, or should I just mention briefly some smaller ones that are
Yeah,
related?
I think you can bring up how I don't know how many you have in total, but you can bring up some of them. Just talk about why a little bit, and then we'll leave the big hitters for the end for each of us. So you can go ahead and get started with those.
All right, so it's related to my main one, but I'm gonna mention it now because I don't know if all of you guys went out and heard the song that I put in the chat. So for those of you that are watching right here, I recommend that after this, for now you stay with us, but after this you can look up NF, Let Me Go. NF is one of my favorite rappers. It's hip hop music. I'm sure you didn't notice this, Ace. Nobody notices this when you listen to NF, but there was not one cuss word in the song. NF is a Christian rapper, even though the music isn't Christian per se. It's just regular music. It's just a guy that talks about his experiences, but he's Christian, and so he doesn't cuss in any of his songs. He doesn't glorify anything. It's just talking about real life, and everybody loves that. That's why he's created this fandom or whatever. And Let Me Go. The reason why I wanted to bring this up, the game that I want to talk about is Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. And Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is it's not an indie game, but people consider it an indie game because I'm pretty sure it's Team Ninja, so it's not an indie game by no means. But it was a smaller title. It was one of the first AAA games that only cost like $40. So it's this in between a full game and a shorter game. And that game deals with mental health. Do all of you know what Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is? Rubikai, you know what it is?
I do.
No. Oh, so basically, okay, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. You start off is a female protagonist. I forget. Well, she's Senua. Her name is Senua, and it's in Nordic mythology. And you're basically, the point of the game is you're going to hell to rescue the love, your love, who apparently was killed or committed suicide or something like that. So that's the point of the game. You're trying to rescue his soul, basically. You know, he's lost in hell. But the game starts out and you start hearing voices. The game, you can only play this game with earphones. You cannot play this game without earphones. Like, you just have to play with earphones. And you start hearing voices and they're speaking to one another and they're narrating, they're speaking about you. They never speak to you. And that's when you realize that the protagonist is schizophrenic. So she's schizophrenic, and throughout the entire game, you're constantly hearing these voices. So that's why you have to play the game with earphones. And it's so incredible because I remember there's a one moment in the game where the voices just got to me, and I literally, like, audibly said, "Shut up." And I said it like out of frustration, and the character was said it right there as well. She was like, "Shut up," like, quiet. She was telling the voices to quiet down, and that was the moment where I was like, "Wow, I'm the character. Like, I understand how that feels like." And to emphasize why this game is special, because it's not just schizophrenia. Everything in the game is designed around mental health. So, for example, there's this puzzle elements where certain letters show up in the world and they light up and you have to line them up, and those are the puzzles in the game. But when you watch, the game comes with a brief documentary of the making of, and it says that that puzzle was designed around a certain mental health condition that people, they tend to get blurry vision, and the lights bother them, and they can't really focus, and they start thinking, and that's what the puzzle was designed around. So the game is meant to represent what it feels like, what it feels like to have these mental issues, but especially schizophrenia. And now going back to what does this have to do with NF, right? What does this have to do with NF, with the song that I said? The one thing that I want to highlight about the song is this, and I know you heard it, Ace, is in the verses, especially towards the end of each verse, you see how he's talking. I don't know if you picked up on this, but he's talking to himself. He's talking to his own thoughts, to his own mind, to his dark thoughts, and he's constantly saying, like, "You don't want me to live. You want me to die. You don't want me to be better." Like, he's saying that the voices in his head don't want him to be a better person. They don't want him to be happy, and he's telling them to let him go. And in the verses, as the verses goes on, he starts getting more aggressive, and he starts raising his voice, and he's yelling at his dark thoughts. But as immediately the chorus hits, and he sounds so vulnerable, saying, "Let me go, let me go." So you have this contrast between the verse, which is very aggressive, and then the vulnerability in I'm getting chills even as I describe it. The vulnerability in the chorus. And those of you who deal with mental health issues can probably relate to this more than anybody else. That's exactly how I feel when I deal with my mental health, with anxiety specifically, but also with depression and other stuff like that. Like, there's points in my life where I got angry, and I'm angry. I'm just tired of it. Just leave me alone. Like I'm tired of feeling this way. I'm tired of struggling with this. I'm tired of not being able to step out of my own home without feeling sick. So I get aggressive in that sense to myself. Like, I'm frustrated with these thoughts. I'm frustrated with my anxiety. I'm frustrated with these feelings, but they have power over you. So you're kind of scared of them. You're like, "Please let me go." So you're angry at them, like, "Let me go." But at the same time, you're vulnerable. You're like, "Please let me go. Like, I can't deal with it anymore." And that mix of frustration and vulnerability or weakness, at least in my own struggles with mental health, I can relate with that. Like, there are times when I feel in a certain way, and the times when I feel another way. And that's what the song meant to me. And Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice shows this. And it shows how she eventually feels empowered over her thoughts, and she tells them to be quiet, and eventually they are quiet. And that shows how she overcame her dark thoughts and whatnot, and she eventually, reaches the love of her life, and love is what pulled her through. So to me, Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice showed me how it's important not only to seek help and to, not give up, etc., but that we need others around us. We need support around us. In her case, it was the love of her life who allowed her to pull through. And in my case, it's been my friends, it's been my family, it's been church. So Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is one of those games that really, really spoke to me in that sense.
Absolutely. I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to listen to the song. I did, and right after I heard it, I had to come to the chat and let Manuel know I was thankful that he brought that up, because it made me feel things that, and it made me think about things, and it might be uncomfortable things, but they made me who I am today. So a lot of that, I had, and like, it's something that you have to do. You have to introspect and that kind of thing. So it was absolutely something that I needed to hear. I think I've been a little far removed from the situations lately, but like I said, it is those things that made me who I am today. So it was great just to, and it happened automatically after, as I was listening to it. It just brought me back, and it made me think of those times, made me think about me wanting to let go, or something to let me go, or have those kind of thoughts. And it was just, it was definitely something. So I recommend that you guys check it out if you haven't. Everybody in the chat as well. Not right now though, like Manuel says, stick with us, but definitely after. Uh, I
and
want to.
and Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice too. Like I want to point this out. Like not only listen to the song NF, yeah, but support Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Like it's on all the platforms right now. This is something that is very, like, for me, since I'm dealing with mental health, I can relate to it in a particular way. But maybe some people are listening to us and they're like, but that's not really my thing. Like I don't struggle with mental health, so I don't think that game is for me. That's the point. The point is for people who don't know what that is like, and it forces you, it puts you in the shoes of someone who struggles with it. So the game is designed to make people realize, wow, this is what it feels like to have this issue. This is what it feels like to have voices in your head. This is what it feels like to, like, that's part of the point of the game. It's not just for people who struggle with mental health. It's for people who don't struggle with mental health, so you can get another perspective. So I highly recommend that game to everybody. It's like what, like $20 right now. It's very cheap.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard good things. I didn't get to play it myself, but I had read through it, preparing for that one time that we were talking about mental health in video games, and I definitely do recommend it as well. From what I've heard, I still have to get to it, but as Manuel always says, I still have a lot to get through, a lot of games, but definitely on my list.
It's like 5 hours.
Yeah,
You can finish it like in real short.
definitely an experience that you do want to have. I do want to shout out before we keep going. NBA 2 Kenny and Big Ooze. There are two first subs here on the chat, on the channel, on the platform. We definitely appreciate you guys as always. We couldn't be here without you guys. You're always retweeting everything that we put up. You're always here first, so we definitely appreciate you guys, and we definitely appreciate the sub. That's hopefully we can use that as a stepping stone to do better things for you guys. Luis, why don't we go with you?
I mean, to piggyback on Hellblade, it is really cool. Actually, Hellblade, in a way, um, it made me realize that I've dealt with more issues on the mental health side that I would care to admit. Because when I saw Senua, like traveling and having all sorts of voices in her head, and there's a point in the game that I'm not gonna delve into it too much because I do want you guys to try it out. But there's a point in the game when you see that her illness, it's taken her apart, and it manifests itself in a physical form. And that itself is so relatable to me because I mean, I can't tell right now, but I used to have a scar here because when I usually get mad or what all that, I try to hold it in, and so I had trouble manifesting my anger and my emotions as I was a teenager. So I hold it in, and I usually bite my hand, like really hard. So I had that issue, and for many years that was part of my issue. And in some aspects, it has manifested itself now that I'm a parent, and I'm like, wait, I need to address my emotions properly because not only do I have to be good, I have to set an example. So there's all that. So yeah, really, really, really a great topic to tackle with Senua. I would say that I would start off with Kingdom Hearts. I've talked at length about Kingdom Hearts, so you guys might be bored at it. So I'm gonna try to see what other things I haven't talked about Kingdom Hearts yet. Kingdom Hearts, the first one, is special for me for many reasons. Not only that, I do think that it's the perfect mix of Final Fantasy characters with Disney characters. I do think it's the perfect mix of a really personal, deep story that it's within Sora's heart. And oftentimes you see stories that tackle like general topics, but there are special games that try to address your emotions, your heart. And there are some aspects that Kingdom Hearts has stayed away from the key formula over the years. So but the first game, they did some weird things, like, for starters, Sora has to be in another setting. He starts off in Destiny Islands, so he has family there. He has his mom. You never see her, but you hear her, so she's there. Um, so this darkness takes the hold of you, and you're not in your home. So you're not there, to start off. So that hit me because even though I were home, as a teenager, I didn't feel like I was at home because there were not people that addressed the world as I was addressing it, or thought of the problems that I thought that were bigger for me. So in a way, it made me feel relatable to Sora because he in a sense was home, but he wasn't. So yeah, there's all that. He had partners, Goofy, Donald. They're on the goofy side, but they tried to cheer him up even on the down times. I often find myself to be a really pessimistic guy. People don't know this well. I you guys do because you're my friends, but people try to look up to me like, you're so positive, and that's the hardest thing to be, actually, on my end, because in my heart I'm so pessimistic. When I woke up, I'm trying to find strength just to smile because I'm so pessimistic, at heart. So that spoke to me because I need people to cheer me up, to give me reasons to fight. And family does that. Church does that too, Jesus and my faith and all that. But it spoke to me because not only I have to be good to set an example, but I have to be good because by being good I do feel good. So I have to, my smile has to be genuine. And there are not so many protagonists that do this, but Sora, he tried to smile, oftentimes with a fake smile, and his friends noticed, and they were like, Sora, you're not okay, and that spoke to me too, because sometimes we try to post that fake smile and people notice. So that's key. Another thing that Kingdom Hearts does is that there's a part in the game where you know end up buying, you're well equipped. You think you're headed to the final boss, and all of a sudden you lose all your equipment, you lose everything. You're alone, you lose your friends, everyone around is separated from you. And the key moment that brought to me is that I needed to find within myself the strength to move on, because there are key players in my life. There's family, there's my faith, there's friends, there's all that. But in the end, only I know what I've been dealing with, inside. So that made me realize that I have to battle with myself, and that's something that Kingdom Hearts did too. A forefront of Big Heartless manifests itself in a shadow form of Sora. So you have to battle yourself, and that itself, it's so profound and poetic. You have to do that in order to progress at life. And to close it off, there's this moment where you end up being a heartless. And for those that don't know the Kingdom Hearts franchise, a heartless, it's a form, an evil form that it manifests itself when the heart is taken apart. When you remove the heart or the soul from the person, that carcass, that thing, that bad thing that's there, that becomes the hardest. So Sora, at some point in the game, ends up being a harlot. So he has nothing. He's nobody. He's all but himself. And that moment, the game starts off giving you reasons to move on. There's friends here, there's family here, there's laughter, there's hope, there's failure. Yeah, there's a lot of that, but there's also joy, and there's also heavy moments that make you realize that you have to be better at it, and all of that encompasses Sora's heart and makes him whole again. So whenever you feel bad or you feel, unwelcomed in your own self, you have to close your eyes and just picture those moments, those key moments in your life that will give you strength to pull through and to be better and to be whole. And that game, it's so special. I could delve into so many things that it did for me, but those key moments are the ones that made it so special for me.
I'm trying to decide which one's the main header in my head, but I'm gonna go with this one. I'm gonna go with Chrono Cross game. So where do I start? So the plot basically starts with the main character, and the main character is a male, and he gets, involved in this adventure where he doesn't know what happened, but he ends up in a parallel world, and he finds out that himself in that parallel world is dead, and there's some unknown people that want to capture him. He's just pretty much confused. But the main character that I want to focus for my story is Kid, the female character. And when I was growing up, that game came out in 1998, and I think I did play it in 1998. So I was just a kid, and I did notice a lot of similarities with her character. I was very lively, very challenging, but Kid had a very particular mystery to her that you don't know until you keep progressing. It's like she has powers with this necklace. The necklace protects her. There's a lot of parallel world, a little bit of a hint of time traveling, and whenever she feels she's in danger, the necklace takes her back to a point in time where she's safe, and she's pretty much confused about that. So every time you go through like a bad or traumatic event, you pretty much like forget about it and get reset, and it's like nothing's happening to you, right? And I think as a child, I experienced a lot of that. Like a lot of bad things would happen to me, and I wonder why. But like I somehow, without being aware of it, I found a mechanism to kind of like not let it affect me. So I did adopt this like tough girl persona. Nothing affects me. I am perfect from head to toes, good grades, everything. You cannot find a flaw in me. And so there's a element of romance in the game. You can say that the main characters are falling in love. Romance at that time, I was all like about it, like googly eyes, but I really didn't comprehend what it was. So we can skip that. It wasn't, the focus is not on romance. It was more on the fact that throughout the game, these two characters are saving each other. And you just discover that they're lonely and they're saving each other. And the ending of the game is like the thing that hit me the most. Because at the end, everything's fixed, the timelines are fixed, everybody's happy. But Kid ends up in the real world, or at least you can interpret it however you want. And she's still searching for you in the real world. So she is still lonely at the end of the game. So that was like, I think the first time I ever realized in my life that I was actually lonely. Like I had friends, I knew people, but nobody really to connect with, right? And this is gonna be a little Luis is gonna start crying. I expect him to start crying because like I played this game in 1998, and I believe I met you between 1999 2000 ish. And I think you were like that truly one person that I connected as a child, like the first person ever. So I haven't said that before, but one of the things I love about video games is just that the stories, they can touch you. You can learn things about yourself. Imagine things. So thank you, man.
That's definitely a great great story, a great part of the bringing up that subject to life for us with that game. A great game as well. Great pick. I enjoyed it very much. I didn't get to play the Chrono Trigger before I played that one, so I took it as a kind of like a standalone thing, and I really enjoyed it. Definitely touching on a lot of the deep subjects. I think as we grow older, we can see a lot more of that than we did back then. But for sure, great game, a great example of what the subject here is. For me, I'm gonna kind of divide them in between both of what your topics kind of were. There was in between a game that may showed me something, maybe about myself or that kind of thing, or a game that got me through some hard times. Uh, no, to no one's surprise, I'm going to talk a little bit, but just a little bit, about the original Final Fantasy VII. I was going through some tough times when I was younger. That was what 1997 that it came out, I believe. Some tough times at home, and basically it became a coping mechanism. It became that escape, but it did show me a lot of things about focusing on the things that I can't control, not to worry too much about those that I cannot, and that kind of thing. Um, Other than that, baseball games. So my dad and I, and Luis knows this, we have a complicated relationship, right? So it's hard for us really to bond over many things. I am not huge on baseball. He does enjoy it more than I do, but that's one thing that maybe we can sit down and do. And whenever we get together, we might not even talk like that, but we can sit down, have a game. He'll always be like every like it started from the NES, the I believe it was RBI baseball way back then, where they look like sticks, and even up to now the MLB the show. I'll come over home and he'll be like, "Oh, I don't understand these controllers and whatever," but he'll end up beating me every time, no matter how hard the controller is on him. Uh, but it does give me that joy with him that I may not have been able to get in other ways. That kind of bonding with him for whatever reason that may be. Um, Other than that, I'm gonna go some rapid fire here with another few, and then I will leave my big one for last after you guys have gone again. Mass Effect 2, the Suicide Mission. It made me think about having people at my charge or as my responsibility, which now as family men we can think about a little bit more, having them as our responsibilities, and what could happen if we don't do things properly. And I know you guys know how it ends up specifically in that game, so that's definitely one of those things. The Telltale games, as much as Manuel doesn't like them, it taught me a little bit about morality and the gray areas of morality, as well as sometimes no matter what you do, you're gonna have bad consequences to it. But that's just the way that life is. You're used to games just showing you, oh, if you do this right, you can save everybody or whatever. But that is not the case on this games. A little bit more realistic on that note. Uh, Fable and Bethesda games show me about having freedom, what to do with that freedom, and maybe because I can do something doesn't mean that I should do it. That's one of them as well. And my last one I'm going to leave for the next round. So why don't we get back to you, Manuel?
I want to say real quick, I like Telltale games. I don't know where that came from. And the first season of Walking Dead is incredible. My only criticism
Is that
is
they're
that they
back?
don't run well. They don't run
Okay,
well. They just
fair
run bad.
enough.
The engine is bad. I wanted to highlight too. I found it very interesting that the second game that you mentioned was the baseball games, basically because uh, like when we're talking about video games that helped us get through a certain moment or whatever, or made us be better people, it's not about necessarily the video game itself. And I like that about your example. It's about the experience that you had or how that spoke to you in that particular time. In your case, how that helped the bonding, you bond a little bit more with your father. And that's what video games and entertainment in general, right? But video games do, like they create certain experiences in our lives. And sometimes they reflect where our lives are at, sometimes they mark how our lives go, and that's something that I think that only the video game genre can do to this extent. So I really appreciated that example. I'm gonna give then the other ones that I have. I'm gonna do them rapid fire as well, like you did, so that way we have a little more time to speak about the bigger ones. Real quick, Red Dead, because I already mentioned it. Like, well, let me mention the other one, then I'll get back to Red Dead. Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey helped me out through a time when I struggle also with depression, so I have a few mental health issues. Depression is one of them, and Mario Odyssey. The reason why Mario Odyssey to me is the best Super Mario, even though you can make art like obviously Super Mario World is objectively the better one. A lot of people put Mario 64 up there as well. Mario Odyssey will always have a special place in my heart because of the time in which I played it. So I was depressed. I was feeling depressed for a while, and usually when you're depressed, you don't really resonate with happy stuff. Like usually, when you're sad, you listen to sad music or whatever, and that's usually how it goes. But in my case, I was depressed, and Mario Odyssey came out at that time, and when I began playing it, I felt like a little kid again, and I was happy, and I was just free in this world, and I would dress up, and he was so cute, and I would just put the ridiculous outfits on, and it was just fun, just wholesome fun. And this is something that I have to give to Nintendo. Nobody else creates these types of experiences. You can talk about Sackboy if you want. You can talk about Astrobot if you want. Nothing compares to what you feel when you play a Mario game, for example, or even a Pokemon game or whatever it may be. And Mario Odyssey was that for me. It helped me get through my depression, and it just made me happy. That's all. That's all it was about. To the Moon, I'm just gonna mention it. I'm not gonna talk a lot about it, but it helped me get through a breakup. So it's one of the first time. Well, not one of the first times. One of the few times that I've cried during a game, and I really like that experience. And Red Dead Redemption 2. This is my penultimate one. I want to briefly mention. I don't know if I've talked about it here before. The reason why that game spoke to me so much is because the moment in which I played it, I was leaving. I was, how do you say this? I had been 10 years in a church, and I was a leader in the church, and I was teacher, and I was youth leader, and all that stuff. So I was very, very much ingrained in that local congregation. And some things happened or whatever, and then and I eventually left. A bunch of us had to leave for various reasons. When that happened, I started playing it during that time. I started playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and immediately the character that spoke to me wasn't Arthur Morgan. It was what's his name?
Dutch.
Dutch. Dutch Vanderweel, I think is his name. So Dutch is the one that spoke to me. I really resonated with him, not so much with Arthur. Arthur was out here doing bad stuff. And I was like, I couldn't really get into him. He was here, beating people up and killing people for no reason. I just didn't like that. And that's your character. But Dutch was the leader, and he was just trying to do the best for people or whatever. So I identified a lot with him because when I was at church and I was a leader, youth leader and all that stuff, like I did feel that. I felt like, man, if only they knew how much I care for them. If only these people knew how much I love them and how much I really, really just want the best for all of them. And they don't see that. They only see, oh, but you're making this mistake, and and that was so difficult. So I identified with Dutch because of that. Because Dutch was just wanting, supposedly, he was just wanting the good for the group, and the group just didn't believe in him. And I was like, come on, people, like listen to Dutch. He's just trying to do what's good for the group. And when he had the twist, that broke me. That hurt me when he had the final twist. Like I was in denial the first few times when he was turning bad. But once you realize, no, this guy is bad, I was like, man, that like, because imagine you're identified, like that's me, I'm Dutch, but Dutch is a bad guy, so that made me reflect a lot on my own life, my own ministry and the way that I dealt with other people. And since then, for example, one of my best friends, Grace, I've spoken to her in recent months, and I told her, man, I was not a good leader to you, was I? Like I did not treat you well when I was your leader, and we actually, we had that heart to heart, and now we have the best relationship that we've had, ever. So Dutch made me realize that. Dutch made me realize that sometimes you think you're doing the right thing, you think you're being a good guy or whatever, but you're making mistakes along the way, and then you need people around you to point that out. That's why you can't be the only leader. You need people around you to point that out, that you're doing things wrong. And that's what helped me in Red Dead Redemption. And then finally Arthur had the other twist. He became the good guy. Well, he's always the good guy, but he stopped doing these bad stuff, so he was redeemed. And that's when I finally identified with that character arc. So it's very interesting. I've never had that in a game before. Like I've never had that experience of identifying one character and then the other. Like I never had that before. So Red Dead Redemption basically, made me evaluate what type of person, what type of leader I am, what type of example I am to other people, and realize maybe I'm not always right. Like maybe I'm just not always right, and I need people to let me know that I'm not always right.
That is an excellent game, excellent pick, excellent reason for being it. Uh, I don't want to say too much about it. I think we'll hear a little bit more about it later on. But why don't you go? Why don't we go with Luis then? What's your big hitter?
I mean, I have to
Oh, actually,
at
no. We're
least,
doing the we're still doing. Yeah, you can let me know what
yeah, the
else you
quick,
got, and then we'll go
the
back
the
to that. Yep.
yeah, at least some quick fires before the big hitter. Um, Final Fantasy X. Rubikat enjoys Final Fantasy X for a lot of reasons. And I think when we played it, eh, at the same time. So it's special for us. But what's special about Final Fantasy X is that I identified a lot with Titus. Titus is not good in the game. When I say good, he's not strong. He's not I mean, when you play the game, you do think, okay, this guy is the protagonist, but at some point you notice that it's actually Yuna's story, for a lot of times, and he's just there like trying to glue all of it together. And what's special about that is that when that game came, since I'm a pessimistic, I thought of myself, no, I'm Titus, I'm here because I'm the protagonist of my life. But when I found that Titus was the lamest character in the game, I was like, man, I really am Titus because sometimes I am the lamest character, but I'm the glue that ties it all down. I'm the glue that sometimes gives strength to some characters. And Titus is a great secondary character. That's the thing. He's not the top fighter. That's Or for you, and he's not the top magician. No, that's Yuna for you. But Titus there because he's special. He needs to push these people forward, and that's his responsibility. And on that sense, I found myself identified in that. Sometimes I do find my life to have purpose in that front. I find myself pushing other people forward. I think that's why God made me. I truly do. So that's something that's special. Another game that was special on that sense was the Sonic Adventure, the first one, because Sonic is Sonic. He's one of the best mascots, if not the best one ever. Not with the best games, definitely not, but he's recognizable. So Sonic, in his first foray into 3D, he came with all sorts of tricks and all that, but he came with heart too. He had the responsibility of saving the world, but also thinking that he might not be able to do this. So he has to set some scenarios, he has to like maintain a proper order if this goes wrong. And what I did enjoy about Sonic is that in that game is the first time that he's a leader. He goes to his friends and he goes like, this might go sideways, guys. This might go wrong. And if I'm not able to do this, Amy, you should do this, and Knuckles, you should do this, and Tails, you're in charge of this. And that made me realize that sometimes in my mind I might not be able to make everything right. I might not be able to be the leader, to be the guy that does the final push, but I am responsible of maintaining order in my scenarios, of giving people calm and peace of mind. I am responsible for that. So Sonic was special in that regard. Star Fox, quick shout out because that game, brought multiplayer with me and my dad. I oftentimes play some games with my dad. MLB games are special in that sense. I share that with Ace because my dad is a huge baseball fan. But Star Fox, it was special because I at that time I thought that I was like giving my dad a run for his money or for his time, and I found that he truly enjoyed playing with it. And he played with me so much that I ended up sleeping on his lap. And then he got me to bed, and I woke up next morning, not knowing how, how it all went down. So that was special. Star Fox, it will always be special in that regard. And let me see. Another one, and this might, you know, the one that I have saved before the big hitter. Um, I say that Mario, because Mario, even though Manuel has a really solid point on Odyssey. I would say that New Super Mario World made me a gamer, as I am today. And what that game made special is that Mario has a learning curve. You have to like jump in the right order, and the level itself teaches you how to play. And before Mario, I thought, because I played games before Mario, the Atari games, I was bad at them. And I thought, this is something I enjoy, but I'm not good at it. So I might as well give up on this. But Mario helped me realize that life has a learning curve. That life itself, it's an uphill battle. You have to lose a life to gain a life. You have to risk everything for the right reward. Sometimes, you would have to find, you know, joy in failure. So that Mario showed that to me, and it made me who I am today. So that's special, and yeah, I'm gonna save the big one for later.
Yeah, what about you? What you got before you hit us with the big one?
I'm thinking maybe the first one was the big one. I don't know. I cracked a little bit over there, but I was thinking. So this one's gonna be more of a. That I used to play Zelda, or I still do play Zelda, and I like the whole series, right? And I mentioned last week that my first Zelda I was playing it as a child, and it took me years because I didn't know how to read. I was too young for the game and whatnot. But then I regarded that game as kind of like a puzzle game, and that was it. I will just do puzzles, and whenever I didn't know what to do, I will just cut grass endlessly. I probably have half of the time that I completed that game just cutting grass, and the other half figuring out the actual puzzles. So, and then there was a special person in my life once upon a time, a partner of mine. We were together for many, many years. And he was a huge fan of Zelda. And I remember making fun of it because at first I don't think I ever got like the storyline, like how special it was. Well, where did it fit in the this in timeline or any of that? I wasn't like really paying attention to that. And he sat there and explained it to me and started playing Zelda games in front of me, and I was kind of like, oh, this is actually a good game. So having people show you games that you've already played and give you their opinions and give you the experience can make things special. And that's something that like I took it as a learning lesson to kind of try and look deeper into games and not just like judge it by whatever I think it is. So this was not like a tear breaker like the first one, but it was a lesson for me to look deeper into games, not to overlook it. And you will think that I already knew that based on my experiences as a younger person, but it takes time. It takes time.
It really does. All right. I'm gonna go with my big hitter. Then I'm gonna get started since we're kind of doing it in a certain order. And I mentioned it, a little bit in passing when Manuel was talking about Red Dead 2. Red Dead 2 is gonna be the one for me. Uh, it just the whole journey. I mean, that game is so well done, and we talked about it at length. But say we focus more on the later parts of the game as he realizes that his mortality, it's incoming, it's happening. There's nothing to stop it, and he has done bad things, and that's what he has this conversation, for example, with a nun, when he's talking about I'm a bad man and this and that, but that he realizes that, and she helps him, and other people do as well. He's still here. What can you do while you're still here? You may not have done things, and this is my takeaway. You may not have done things in the best way up to this point, but you still got time. You're still here. You can fix some of those things. You can do better. You can help somebody else, maybe like he did with John, and this and that. But as you have to keep thinking, not only do you, yes, you're not done. You still have the time, but also your time is finite, though. Like you will not be able to. I'll save it for later, forever. Eventually, it's gonna come. Like if you want to do something better, do it now. That I think that was my takeaway from it. Is like, you may not have done the best up until this point. You can fix it, but you will not have the opportunity to fix it forever. So you gotta get started on that if that's what you want. If you want to do better for yourself, for whoever. So for me, that's gonna be the one. That was my takeaway from it. It's just it just makes you think, it's and going through the whole adventure. And again, I don't know how many of y'all have played it. If you haven't, I absolutely recommend you do, because it is so well done that I'm having a hard time sticking with any other games afterwards. So yeah, but yeah, that's gonna be my one. Just that was my takeaway from it. That's how it made me feel personally.
How good was that scene, right? That scene with the nun. Like, how good was that scene?
How good was the
And
whole game?
the whole game, obviously, but
That scene that you
man,
mentioned, though, with him going back to camp, where it's just the music and you just have to sit
oh,
and
that's my
take
favorite scene
it.
of all
Oh
time.
my god, it's just everything is just so well done, though.
We gotta have a Red Dead Redemption podcast only, where we talk about the best moments in Red Dead Redemption 2 and 1, and just talk about that only. But yeah, because every time you mention Red Dead, I just want to talk about that. Like, I don't even want to talk about my game. I want to talk about how special Red Dead Red Dead
You
is. Like
started
one,
it, but
yeah,
yeah, I had it at my last one, but I was like, oh my, I was gonna say something about it.
yeah, yeah. But that goes to show, though, we mentioned two different things. Like, they touched us in two different ways, and anybody can play the game and probably get something else out of it. But going back to that scene real quick, because I just love talking about video games. The acting, that guy's acting, the Arthur Morgan. I forget, I don't know his name,
It's
but but
you're
I don't know whoever he is. Like, he just it's just I don't know. It's just it's really touching when he says I'm scared. Like, and when he says that, it's like, man, like, life is
he's
so
almost about to cry
vulnerable.
too.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
can
he's
tell.
teary eyed. Like, the only thing that compares to that particular, you can see my eyes are kind of watery. The only thing that compares to that when he says I'm scared is Joel in The Last of Us Part Two, the last scene with Ellie, when they finally decide to, I'm sorry, this is not a huge spoiler, right? But when Ellie finally gives him another chance, and he's holding back his tears, he's like, thank you. That those two scenes, those are the best acting that I've ever seen in any video game ever. Like, that's just so special, man. And I just love it. I love Red Dead Redemption 2. Love it. All right.
It's great. All right, man. Let's hear it for your big
it's
hitter.
parentheses. It's fighting for my number two spot. The more I talk about Red Dead, the more it's fighting is moving towards my number two spot. I don't know. We'll see. We'll
Well,
see one
what's
day.
curious about that is that you talk about the more we think about certain games, the more they start falling off. But yet, Red
Yeah.
Dead is the opposite.
Yeah, yeah. The more you talk about it, the more you realize, like, the better it is. That's true. All right. I guess my last one then is gonna be Celeste. Does anybody know what Celeste is? Basically, Celeste is a platformer. Rubikat said no. It's a platformer. It's like a retro type platformer. The point of that game is that it's difficult. So I like difficult games, and it's kind of fun to say this game that hardly nobody beat, I beat it. That's fun to me. So that's why I like the Souls games and all of that stuff. I have obviously you have to be in the mood for it. I can't just play that only. But Celeste was one of those games. I saw the trailer. Everybody was saying how awesome the game was or whatever. And as soon as I saw the style and I heard the music, and I saw that everybody was like saying how difficult it was, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get it. But I didn't know anything else beyond that. And if you watch the trailer right now, you can see that the game seems like a childish sort of game. It seems made like a retro platformer for children, or for people that played games when they were children. That's very deceptive, because as soon as you start playing the game, and let me briefly summarize what the story is about, just so you can get an idea how simple this game seems. The story is simply about a girl who wants to climb a mountain. That's it. That's the only point of the game. The point of the game is to climb this mountain. So each level, you're platforming and you're trying to get to the top. You're going to get to the top. Obviously, along the way, you meet characters and all this other stuff. But that's what the game is about. And the gameplay is just platforming. Like there's nothing else to it. It's just a platformer. So it's not supposed to be so emotional, but it is. And it's because the game starts hinting at what the mountain represents, but you don't really grasp it until later on in the game. There's a point in the game when you meet this character, and she's like the darker version of you, and that's when the game starts to turn like that. That's when you realize this game is a little bit weirder and more profound than I thought it was. In the mountain, it's more symbolic than I thought it was. In this place that she's in, I'm starting to question if it's real or not. If it's a real place, a real mountain, or if it's some fantasy world, or if it's in her mind or whatever. She's had this conversation. At one point, she calls somebody. I think she's speaking to her mom, and you can only hear her side of the conversation. And basically, you notice that her mom is basically questioning her, like, "What are you doing there? Are you all right? Like, what's wrong with you?" Basically saying, apparently she has issues, mental health issues. So her mom is questioning her health at that moment, and the girl Celeste, she gets frustrated or whatever, and she's like, "I'm fine," and she hangs up. And that's when you realize this game is about mental health. So just picture, I'm saying a puzzle platformer, a retro puzzle platformer that is about mental health. I don't think that's ever been done before. Like I don't think that exists. And climbing the mountain basically represents obviously overcoming that mental health. So it becomes, you're climbing up and it's difficult and you have to claw and you have to do all this. That's why the game is so hard too. So the game is literally so difficult because you're supposed to understand how difficult it is to get out of these situations when it comes to mental health or any situation in life that's difficult. Is not easy. You can't just get out of it. It's not just gonna go away. You have to work hard to get out of it. And the ideal I struggle with, among other things, the main issue that I identified with in this game is I have general anxiety disorder. So I have anxiety, and at that moment, I had already been dealing with it for a couple of years, and my anxiety is related to my divorce, and it's related to my faith, and it's related to just it's in general it's related to certain aspects of my life. So it's all related. And when I first started struggling with anxiety, there was a point in time. I remember, this is something so stupid, but I was in Walgreens, and I was in the line waiting to buy something, and I was looking at the employees, and I was thinking, man, these people work like 8-hour shifts. They have to stay behind. They have to be there for 8 hours. And I thought to myself at that moment, I could never do that. Like I'm never gonna be normal. I'm never going to be able, I can't be behind the counter for 8 hours because what happens if I get a panic attack? What happens when I get anxiety? I can't be there. Like I have to leave. I'm never going to have a normal job. I'm never going to have a normal life. And that, that really, really like affected me emotionally. And at a certain point in my life, it got to that. It got to that point where I couldn't function normally. Like I couldn't leave my house. I couldn't be in a traffic jam. I couldn't go out to eat. I couldn't do anything because as soon as I left my home, I would get anxiety attacks. And I had at one point in my life, I had suicidal thoughts. Not, I say suicidal, but it's not suicidal in the sense like I want to kill myself or anything. It's more in the sense that there was a point in my time where I just couldn't deal with it anymore, and I just didn't want to be here. Like I just want to be gone because I can't struggle with this anymore. And it's very, very difficult because, and this is where Celeste kind of comes in, because I noticed throughout the game, you can encounter certain people who are dealing with their own struggles, but the ones that really stuck to me was the people that apparently know her, and apparently those people that knew her, they didn't have any faith in her capacity to overcome this emotional, situation, health, whatever she had. Like they didn't believe in her. They were like, no, you need, you have a problem, you have an issue, you need to, like, they never actually said, hey, you can do this. Like, I believe in you. They never really believed in her in that sense. And I forget exactly the connection that I was going to make to this, but basically, like when I was struggling with my mental health in that level, like to that degree, because obviously I'm much better now, but to that degree, like it was very difficult. Okay, Like it was very difficult to tell this to other people. It was very difficult to go to somebody and reach out and say, "Hey, I'm having these thoughts and I can't really control them. Like, what do you think that is, or what can I do about it?" Like I couldn't tell people that because I was scared that they were, they would think I'm crazy, which is basically what most people do think. And there was a time in my life where I did feel like I was crazy, and I've never told anybody that, but there was a time in my life where I couldn't control my thoughts. Like I literally couldn't control what I was thinking at a given time. There was one point in my life where this is the first time I'm ever gonna say this. There was one point I remember I left church. It was nighttime, and on the ride home, I started questioning whether I was awake or not. And then I couldn't discern for a moment whether or not if this was a dream or was it real. So that's scary. That's scary to feel like you're literally losing your mind. And then I can't tell anybody this because of that, and I can't tell anybody in the church this because then I'm gonna lose all my, like what I'm not. They're gonna lose faith in me as a leader, and I'm gonna be a bad example because if I'm struggling with this and I believe in God, then what example am I giving to other people who also believe in God? Like it was very very difficult, and this game Celeste like really represented that. Like it showed how it is, how it feels to have a struggle like this, and those that are close to you, they don't believe in you to be able to overcome this, or they judge you, or they think you're crazy, or whatever. And you have to find a way to fight this, and you have to find a way to overcome this, and you have to find a way to be better. And in Celeste, eventually she started realizing that it's not a matter of fighting and beating her mental health. It's a matter of learning how to deal with it and using it to overcome life's difficulties. So at the end of the game, her dark side became actually her ally. And she was like, I'm going to use this to be a better person. I'm going to use this to overcome my situations. It's not a battle. It's not a fight. Because it is a fight. You're not going to win that fight. And that's something that I had to realize. I couldn't fight my anxiety because the more I fought my anxiety, the worse the anxiety came. I had to accept that I had anxiety, and I had to learn how to live life through my anxiety, even though I have anxiety. And little by little, that's how I've been able to overcome it, by learning to accept it, and I've been able to overcome it. And I no longer anxiety no longer dictates what I can or cannot do in my life. In the past, it used to dictate what I can and couldn't do. Now it no longer dictates that because I no longer care if I get an anxiety attack here or there. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna enjoy myself and I'm gonna live life and I'm still gonna be a Christian and I'm still gonna be myself and I'm still gonna be this person. And that all started with Celeste. So Celeste actually led me to seek professional help, and I was in here, looking for getting therapy for my anxiety and whatnot. And at the end of the year, I was literally, which is very rare. Anybody who knows anything about mental health, you're never actually cured. And at the end of the year, they were like, "No, you've overcome it. Like this is it. You can go now." And since then, I've been using those tools to live life and helping others deal with it as well, who are struggling not only with anxiety but with other mental health issues. And again, I gotta reiterate, all of this started with Celeste. Like just playing that game that spoke to me in that way. It gave me the what I needed to say, you know what, I can do this. I can overcome this, and I have overcome this. So that's why I'm here now.
Thank you, Manuel. And the guys I know as well appreciate you sharing this with us. I think this could be something that, as it helped you, could help other people, which, it's definitely something that we want to bring out. A lot of us, especially in these trying times, deal or have dealt with mental health issues, and something like that. If like that specific game and the lessons that it teaches and that kind of thing can help with that, then that's something that we definitely want to push forward here. If any of you guys also, we're gonna have our platforms, and if you watch this in the video and YouTube, we're gonna have our platform there. Nobody's really alone. If you have anything that you want to talk to anyone about, we'll be here. So definitely let us know. And again, very appreciated, Manuel, that you brought that up. I am absolutely gonna be doing my best to get my hands on that game. here in a short time because I think that is an experience that I want to go through for myself. And with that, we're gonna go to Luis. What you got, man?
It's hard to follow after that delivery. Manuel set the bar really high, but it was special for him. And yeah, I really enjoyed. He sharing that with us. It was special. I got
I
chills here.
didn't
So
cry.
yeah,
I cheered up, but I didn't cry. So I did it.
yeah. You did, you did.
You've been close a few
Um,
times.
yeah, you've been close, man.
You
I mean,
actually did cry though, didn't he?
I
I,
mean, you could
I,
see my tears or
No, not
whatever, but
you, but Luis cried
oh man.
before. Wait,
yeah,
with the Star
I did.
Fox?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, he cried that time.
yeah, yeah,
He
yeah.
actually
I
cried.
did,
Yeah.
and I did today with Rubikat. Story
Oh, I
back then.
knew I
Yeah,
saw it. I was like, he cried. I'm not
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I knew it.
yeah. I'm not good at
Hey, this is
hiding
that kind of
it.
episode, okay? If you ain't crying, there's might be something.
Yeah,
Check yourself.
that's true. I don't know if Rubikat's gonna cry now because I'm gonna my top hitter is actually one that she suggested in a way. So it's not one game; it's more of a franchise, and more so than a franchise, it has a name. It's Dante. Okay. Um, so Rubikat, she was the one that was like this huge fan of the first Devil May Cry. So she suggested that I played this, and I was a huge fan of the Resident Evil franchise. So the first game, it seemed familiar in that sense. Because those of you in the chat that don't know this is a fun fact. Devil May Cry was supposed to be Resident Evil 4, but it went sideways with the demonic stuff and all of that. So it ended up being different franchise, which was good because it's a really profitable franchise and it's a really good one too. So yeah, going back to DMC, the first game it's more of a exploration type of game. You're in a mansion, you're doing all that. So the story itself is very rich, it's profound, but what's more interesting is this character. It's Dante, because Dante, he was the son of Sparta, and Sparta was this big demonic entity. He was like the biggest demon slayer ever. He was a demon, but he was, you know, a rebel of its own kind. He fought the demons in order to save mankind and all that. So and he ended up having a child with a human woman. And therefore comes Dante and also Virgil. So yeah, we have this protagonist right here, and the first thing that struck to me about Dante was that this guy had to be in his father's shadow for all time. And Ace and Ruby Cat knows this. I don't know if Manuel knows much about this because by the time I met Manuel, I think my father was not, doing much at church or being like this big leader. But when I was growing up, my father was the biggest thing in church, at least on our circles. He was in charge of all the younglings. He made the big moves for us to be at summer camp and all that. So he was a really big leader, and I was in his shadow. All that time I was Dante, in Sparta's shadow, and I had to be good because people were addressing, you're the son of Sparta, you're the son of Sparta, and I was the son of Tito Hernandez, and I was like, I am not deserving of that title because I am bad at it. I have issues with my faith. I have issues being a leader. I do not consider myself a leader for most times, so it's hard to be in these shoes. But Dante, he tackled it with such an ease and a personality that it spoke to me. He was sure of himself. Then we see more of him in Devil May Cry 2, which was for me the best arcade game, but not the best game, But it was the best arcade game in a sense because it included scores and all that. And while I was playing with Franzelli, with Rubik, I was like, I have to be good at this because she's really good at this, and I have to be good at this because she's expecting more of me. So more of Dante grew on me. I have to be good because I am the son of my father, but also people expect this from me. In DMC2, people call Dante to tackle missions. He has a place set up and all that. So people rely on him. They call him, we have this entity right here, this demon right here. You're the only one that has the strength to do this. And I don't know if Rubikat remembers this, but we have a friend in common. I mean, we've been apart from her for quite some time, but this friend, this particular friend, was in an uphill battle in her mental state, so she wanted to end her life. And I remember Rubikat going to me and saying, "You're the only one that can do this." And man, I don't want to cry right now, but I was so unsure of myself at that time. I was so not ready. I was not ready. And when Rubikat came to me, I was like, God, just give me strength, because I'm gonna try to end my life right now, and I have to stop someone. Man, I can't do this, and I pulled through, because Dante showed me that way, that you could be like special, you can find strength within yourself. And also, something that Dante made me think about, or reflect on my mind, is that I've often had battles within myself, with my demons, with my personal mental health and all that. But Dante is half demon and half human. So he's always in that battle. And when he goes full demon, things go bad for him. Because he's strong and he beats up the bosses and all that, but he ends up losing part of himself. So I was there. I was Dante in that sense. I was losing my uphill battle, and the demons were gaining a hold of me, and my faith was not strong enough. So I needed to get back on my 2 feet. And that's when DMC3 popped up, and we saw more of the young Dante. And that's when the full circle like closed, and I thought, man, I am Dante. Dante, it's often a bad brother. As am I, I'm not the best brother. And Dante is often a guy that, he fools around because he feels lonely inside. And I'm just like that. Dante is this guy that he has quips and all that, because he's hiding his emotions. I'm often just like that. So, it's really hard for me to show emotions, even though people might think otherwise. So, Dante, it made me be a better person, because it made me reflect on all the things that I could be if I were at my top speed, if I were on my top battle, if I were better at than what I am today. So that's why the Devil May Cry franchise is so special to me. I think I've never mentioned this before, but it's not about the action for me. It's more of this guy that, he's always upfront, and he's making sacrifices. And that's another thing I learned about Dante. In life, you have to sacrifice for the people you love. You have to. You have to sacrifice, like, your comfort zone. You have to sacrifice resources. You have to sacrifice time. You have to do that, because people that you love deserve that. So Dante showed me that, and it made me reflect that I might not be at as good as Sparta. I might not be as good as my father, but I'm really good at my shoes, and I'm good enough to save my world, and I'm good enough to tackle my own battles. So it made me be more self-centered, and be more confident in a way. So yeah, really, really thanks to Rubikat, because if she were not the one that introduced me to this franchise, I might have never been so fond of Dante. But Dante, I think he might be the savior for me. Yeah.
Another excellent example, and doesn't that just speak about gaming as a whole, that it can evoke these feelings on us? We're like, it's not the same game. Even when Manuel and I had a game, that's a same game. We it taught us different things, and it's like I don't think there's a genre or anything else out there, like in movies or anything like that, that can do this for us in the way that gaming does. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people that are not against gaming, but it kind of like, they don't really understand it, and this is probably why, is they haven't had any experience like that, that they would know what it is for us. But absolutely, I think another great example from you, Luis. And so with that, we're gonna go ahead and go with Ruby Cat. What is gonna be your big hitter?
Well, first of all, I'd like to start with adult Rubikat wants to apologize to Luis for bringing, that friend that had suicidal thoughts and was planning to and whatnot. Because as an adult, you're like, that's a big burden to put in another person. But then when you think back, we were both children. Like Luis at that point was the only person I connected to and the only person I could trust. So I did go to him for advice and with a plan in my head that if this person listens to you, they're not gonna go through this. And unfortunately, you know, in a way you would say, why didn't you go to the parents? And I believe that maybe the parents would have saved the person in a physical way from doing the act, but it would have been so much worse at the end of the day for this person. So even adults couldn't be trusted with this info. At least that was my viewpoint at that moment. So just wanted to make that comment. The game that I'm gonna talk about is Persona 5. I I believe I played it around 2018, so this is fairly, you could be say recent, not so long ago I went through this. In 2018, past summer, I think I was going through a rough breakup. I also, I was working for a big tech company, pretty busy all the time, and I just got into grad school, and that was going to be my first semester at grad school. So I found myself juggling a lot of things at the same time. Between grad school and work, I had no time for myself or for people for that matter. And on top of that, when you feel depressed and you feel lonely and you have all these feelings, you don't have time to deal with them, and you're just in a constant state of like panic, and you have to juggle all these things, right? And so on weekends, I could visit a friend or two, do something, but I knew that right away after like hanging out, I knew I had to go back and study and do something. And I needed happiness. I needed some sort of happiness to find it anywhere. And then I stumbled across Persona 5. I think I bought it because Sunny had it like at a discount or something. So I just bought it, read the reviews, and I started playing. And, you know, absolutely love the game. I love the storylines. I love the characters. But my story's not around me identifying myself with a particular character or storyline. It was mostly what the game overall was giving me, which is even a sense of childhood, that excitement of a good story, of something new, of something to look forward to. I spent that semester negotiating like, when do I get to play the game? Well, if I do this homework, I can go play it. Or maybe I don't feel like doing homework and I'm gonna play for 5 hours, and then I'm gonna have the energy to do something. And so it did really carry me through the entire thing. So that semester I was sleeping, eating, doing work, grad school, Persona 5, and there was nothing else. So it carried me through tough times, nursed my depression. I got back on my feet. I started making more friends, going out. And then it made me realize that, you know, I already studied a computer science degree and I was getting another computer science degree. Well, why am I doing this to myself? This is making me unhappy. And I had a lot of friends talk me out of it. They were like, no, finish it. Like, you have straight A's, like, you could do this, get the paper, whatnot. And I was like, I've already gone through like sweat and tears getting my first degree. Luis knows that the meaning for me of like getting that degree was like, when I studied my first degree every semester, I didn't know if I could pay for school. I didn't know where I was gonna be. Like, it was like a nervous wreck. And when I finished it, I thought I was done with it. But I always thought like, I wanted to go to school. That was my feeling right after graduating. But I also wanted a taste of what real life was. So that's why I went to the industry right away. And so years later, I thought maybe I should go back because I always wanted to do that. And then you realize that you've changed. Your interests are not the same. Getting this degree is not gonna make you happier. It's not even gonna do anything for me financially because I've been years in the industry, so the experience counts for that. And man, I'm depending on a video game to make me happy. well, I should be, it's not a bad thing, but I should be out there in a real world being happy and doing things that I want, that make me happy. And that's kind of pretty much like what Persona 5 characters do. They help other people and they're happy. They take off their mask. They are who they are. They hang out as friends. They go for places to eat. You take them on dates. You romance them. And I was missing all of that from my life. Like I was like living my life through that game. And so those were tough times, but it's one of my favorite games because of not only how well developed it was, but just like it carried me through tough times.
Good one. All right. Now that we have gone through our big ones, does anybody have any comments on any others that we have talked about or anything like that?
I mean, I don't really, I don't think, I don't want to talk too much because I think every one of us has said something very, very important and poignant. So I would like to leave it at that. But I wanted to briefly comment on what you said earlier about video games. Um, you know, it is the only medium that can do this because for various reasons, right? But one of the reasons is that you bring so much into the game that you're playing that you don't really bring into when you watch something or when you hear something. Yes, you always bring some part of you to everything you experience, but not to the degree that you do in video games, because in a sense, you're role playing as another player. So you are becoming this other player or these other players. So you bring all this to the game. So a game like Celeste, for example, um, it's a game that spoke to me in the way that I said earlier. It might not speak to everybody. I don't recommend Celeste to everybody. It's not the type of game that I recommend to everybody because it has a high barrier of entry. It is difficult or whatever. But my point is that video games are special because the reason why Celeste was so special to me was because I was the one playing it at that particular time. It might not be that special for somebody else, and that's something that I can't find another realm, another medium that replicates that. Because when you watch movies, usually you're just watching, like, that's that person. That's not me. I'm not in that movie. I'm not in that world. And whatever you get out of movies and series is not as personal as it is in a video game when you're invested in that world. So I just wanted to point that out, that video games are special. They're on another realm in terms of that.
All right, I think then we can uh, use those great comments from Manuel as our closing words for the day. I think we all can use a little chill break after pouring our hearts out here. I think it helps absolutely, just talking about it and that kind of thing. So we're gonna go ahead and leave you with that. Should be up in YouTube tomorrow if you miss any of it. Again, super super thankful for you guys allowing us to be here and hopefully bigger and better things to come. So thank you and good night.